Hey there! Welcome back to another review, this time of the 1985 sci-fi family picture, Daryl. This is actually a beta tape. I didn't watch the film on this beta tape, but I don't have this film on DVD. It is kind of hard to find nowadays. Um, the DVD that is out has a horrible cover, has some really horrible cover art. It just makes the film look really cheesy. And I know that's a really kind of not a taboo word, and I don't really necessarily like to use it, but it definitely does fit for when you describe the DVD cover for Daryl. It doesn't really make it look like a film that you want to watch, which is really too bad because there's an actual poster out there that's really good. It's got this great artwork, and but then there's also this poster that is just weird. It has a Jetsons right here, and there's no scene. There's no scene in the film like this. Daryl never watches the Jetsons on a computer screen or on TV. I don't get this. At first, I thought this was somebody. At first, I thought somebody just put a sticker of the Jetsons on this tape, but no, that's what the poster looks like. The first poster for this, so it's very weird. I don't understand that. Anyway, Daryl is a 1985 film directed by Simon Wincer, written by David Ambrose, Alan Scott, and Jeffrey Ellis, featuring cast made up of Barret Oliver from Neverending Story, who played Bastian, Mary Beth Hurt, Michael McKean, Danny Corkill, Josef Sommer, David Wohl, and Colleen Camp. And it features a score by Marvin Hamlish, cinematography by Frank Watts. It's also edited by Adrian Carr. It was released on June 14th, 1985. It's really not that much fanfare. Although it ended up making a decent profit, it still was only fifth in the box office when it came out. It was made for a budget of 12 million. It only made about 25 million in the box office, and that might be including overseas grosses. So yeah, it wasn't really a hit. Um, it holds 53% from on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a lot of reviewers back in 1985 when it came out just weren't really that fond of it, although Roger Ebert recommended the film. And this film, I thought it was a little bit better than I remember it being, because the last time I saw this, I was going through a rough time in my life. This was after I got fired from my job in Oklahoma City, the job where I was working at the movie theater at AMC, and I was just trying to watch stuff to take my mind off of things and make myself feel better. And I watched Flight of the Navigator again, which was great because I love that movie. And then I decided to give this a chance, and I remember it just being really not that great. But then I watched this again a couple nights ago, and I thought it was decent. I thought it was an alright film. I wouldn't say I loved it. I would say I liked it alright. I definitely say it's a mediocre film. When I say mediocre, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means that it's just there. It just means that it isn't it's average. It's average entertainment. I mean, for a film like this, I could be okay with that because it's a movie that came out in 1985 and it's not a more modern film. And at least this film had an interesting concept, and yeah, I could have done more with it, but it didn't execute it so poorly that it pissed me off. The main reason why I think it's just okay is that it's so bland. It's such a bland movie. It's the cinematic equivalent of like eating oatmeal, but with like no sugar added or anything. Just straight up oatmeal. Um, and it wasn't the only one because a lot of critics said the same thing when this came out. In fact, Leonard Maltin said Daryl was one of the blandest movies that he'd seen all year. He said it had no punch, it had no surprises, no juice, especially in the way it's directed. And I agree. I honestly do. There's not a lot of surprises here. There's not a lot of punch here, and there's not a lot of juice. But there are some good characters. There are some likable characters, an interesting concept, some good performances. Little bits of the score by Marvin Ham, which I like, especially the main theme. Other than that, though, I'm not really the biggest fan of the score. It's a little bit too much harmonica for my taste. It doesn't really fit with the film. It kind of sounds like Disney TV movie of the week type stuff. Um, but I really like the song at the end credits called "Somewhere I Belong" by Teddy Pendergrass. As well as, like I said, some good performances, some solid performances, especially from Barret Oliver as the lead kid, Daryl. I thought he did a great job playing this kid who is essentially a robot. I mean, he's made out of human body parts, but he has like a computer brain. And I thought Barret Oliver, he really did a great job here as this character because I really bought that this was a kid who was also part computer. Um, I also like Mary Beth Hurt and Michael McKean as Joyce and Andy Richardson, these foster parents that take Daryl in and form a connection with him. It was nice to see Michael McKean. I enjoy him in Short Circuit 2 and in This Is Spinal Tap and Christopher Guest films. Mary Beth Hurt, I enjoyed her here. She had a lot of spunk and charisma. Danny Corkill, I really liked. I thought he was great. He had great chemistry with Barret Oliver. He played his Daryl's friend Turtle, and he had a lot of personality and vigor, and it was a kid who had an attitude, but he was still likable. I mean, and it was nice. It was refreshing to see this kid do the things that he did because I mean, this kid was totally not PC, was not politically correct in any way, shape, or form. I mean, he's going around cracking jokes and calling his sister a hooker. And then you have like the line of dialogue where Daryl's like, "What is a hooker?" So I mean, this is the type of stuff that you could only get away with, in an '80s movie for kids. Not nowadays. Nowadays it'd be way too PC, and it wouldn't be as much. It wouldn't have as much edge to it, or so on. But I mean that's kind of as close as it gets to being edgy, though. Is the lines of dialogue from Turtle? Because other than that, it's just very inoffensive, and just yeah, like Mother Malton was saying, it's just kind of bland. But I like the concept enough. I like the performances for the most part for most of the cast. Um, I like all of that enough that I enjoy. I can watch the film as a time waster. Now, and plus there's some other stuff in the story that I really enjoy, like when Daryl steals an SR-71 Blackbird. I love that because that's my favorite plane. So that's wish fulfillment right there. I would have loved to have been able to fly a Blackbird when I was a kid. So Daryl, it's an acronym. It stands for Data Analyzing Robot Youth Lifeform. And the beginning of the movie is just a very kind of in the middle of the action, weird opening. It's just boom, Daryl's getting taken by this guy, and then I guess we don't know who he is. We find out later who it is. This other scientist who was dealing with Daryl. They tried to take him away from the government, and well, there's a helicopter chasing after them, and it's somewhere in the Pacific Northwest or in the somewhere like that, or maybe California. I don't know. And it's in the woods somewhere. And then there's this the car crashes off a cliff, and this older couple they find Daryl in the woods, and they ask him what his name is, and he's like, "My name is Daryl." And then you get opening credits with this kind of bluegrass theme music, which doesn't really, I honestly don't think blends well with this movie. And then you get Daryl is dropped off at the orphanage of, I mean, I don't know if that's really the right way to put it, but the place where they drop off kids for foster care, and he eventually finds a foster home with the uh, Richardsons, Joyce and Andy Richardson, played by Mary Beth Hurt and Michael McKean. And that's where Daryl develops a bond with his foster parents, as well as with Turtle, who lives close by. and Amy Linker, who plays Sherry, who is Turtle's older sister. And there's a fun scene where Daryl plays pole position on the Atari and does like really well, does a great job, like gets a high score. Um, that's probably something that a lot of people remember fondly if they grew up back, when this film came out, when if they were kids when Daryl was released, and they probably have fond memories of playing pole position on the Atari. Um, so anyway, yeah, Daryl is physically indistinguishable from an ordinary 10-year-old boy, but like I was saying earlier, his brain is actually a super sophisticated microcomputer with several unique capabilities. These include exceptional reflexes, superhuman multitasking ability, the ability to hack other computer systems. And for a character that has all these different things that it can do, he doesn't do that much. He plays some baseball, he steals a plane, he hacks into a couple things, but it's not. He drives a car in a car chase and drives with two wheels on one side and that type of thing where you drive on two wheels. But it's one of those things where it's like there's more that he could do, like an action scene. Does he have super fast reflexes? He has exceptional reflexes. Well, can he like speed away from people? Like, is there? There's just needed. This film needed more action. It really needed that. This is why this film, even though I don't mind it as a time waster, this film to me is a prime candidate for a reboot or a remake. But they'll probably fuck it up and do it the wrong way. But I mean, I just think that you could do something with this nowadays, and give more action to it, a little bit more intrigue, a better direction with a lot more punch, with a lot more impact. So anyway, the experiment is funded by the military, and of course, with the intention of producing a super soldier who shows no fear and all of that. But the thing is, Daryl is learning human emotions, and the military isn't having any of that. So Daryl doesn't really remember who he is when he's found by this elderly couple and taken to an orphanage. But so he ends up living with his foster parents, Joyce and Andy Richardson. And there's fun moments of bonding where Michael McKean is playing baseball with Daryl, and Daryl shows extraordinary baseball talents. And there's a fun little scene where Daryl's playing baseball, and he Turtle's trying to give him advice because Mary Beth Hurt, Joyce, is getting upset at him because he just is doing everything. She doesn't have to do anything to help him. She basically doesn't have to be a mother, and that frustrates her. And so Turtle's like, you gotta mess up every now and then. And there's a fun line of dialogue where Daryl is all like basically saying he swears and says, I'm sick of this shit or whatever. I don't exactly remember the line of dialogue, and I don't know why it's not on the memorable quotes, but whatever. But it's a fun little scene, and so yeah, he's really good at playing pole position. He is able to really figure out. He goes on an ATM, it's not working properly, so Daryl fixes it for Michael McKean, and then like puts like a shit ton of money into his account. But they never really go back on that. Like he like goes in and fiddles around with the keys and makes it look like he puts in over $1 billion in available funds for Michael McKean. But there's never a scene later where Michael McKean's like, "Holy shit, we have $1 billion in available funds. What happened here?" There's no follow up with that. You would think you'd follow up with something like that. I mean, he put like $1 billion into his account. I know I would notice that. And so he is then introduced to the neighbors of the Richardsons, Howie, played by Steve Ryan, and Elaine Fox, Colleen Camp. Their kids, Sherry and Turtle. Sherry, Amy Linker, Danny Corkill. Sherry's the one that had the pole position game. Daryl was raised in isolation, so his social skills are very limited at first. But his friend Turtle, who's a vulgar 10-year-old who helps him develop social skills. He reminds me a little bit of the kid who played the problem child, but like less annoying. So, however, but then just as the Richardsons begin to form a bond with Daryl, they have Daryl taken away from them by the government, who they masquerade. They have these people who were behind the Daryl project masquerade as his parents, and then they just take Daryl away. And that's when the film started to really slow down in terms of the pacing, because then it just became an exposition fest. Okay, this is what Daryl is, data analyzing robot youth life form. This is what he was created for, blah, 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 blah. His memories restored. He's debriefed on the lessons he learned during his time with the Richardsons. Notable lessons included his decision to strike out at a baseball game because under certain conditions, relating with others, errors was more efficient than maximum performance. His subjective preference over chocolate over vanilla ice cream. Yeah, it's really not really interesting stuff now, is it? Daryl has revealed a capacity for human emotions, including fear, so the Daryl experiment is considered a failure by the military. And there's another problem with this film. There's no real villain. There's no real antagonist. It's just the military. You have like this one guy who I guess is like a general, but he's barely in the movie, and Daryl never faces off with him, one on one or any of that. So there's no antagonist, which really hurts the film. It hurts the pacing, it hurts the story. I mean, you have a good hero in Daryl, but you have no antagonist. So you have no villain. So, Dr. Stewart, Josef Sommer, who is kind of, like I said, an older father figure, one of Daryl's designers, decides to free Daryl so he can return to the Richardson family. But despite the cooperation of Dr. Lamb, they end up escaping. But despite the cooperation of her, the military, they get alerted to Daryl's existence, and Dr. Lamb ends up pretty much. Dr. Lamb has an explanation. They do like a Turing test of some sort. She tells to the general, she says that a machine becomes human when you can't tell the difference anymore. So at first it seemed like she was in on it. She's going to do what the government wants her to do, but then she ultimately doesn't. And then Dr. Stewart and Daryl escape. And they end up they get out of a roadblock, and they escape the first wave of pursuers, which are this wave of police cars. And there's some good stunts in this scene, like police cars going off into the air and crashing. But like I said, it just doesn't have a score. It's complete. There's no score to it. It has and it's just a very kind of workmanlike, just a very like chase scene. It's not very exciting. It's not very thrilling. Even though you have Daryl like driving and doing stunt driving, it's not as much fun as it could be. And I definitely do think a score would have helped it a lot, like a Jerry Goldsmith score or a Craig Stefan score or something, because there's nothing there. It's very rare that you see a chase scene in a movie and you don't have a score. It's so strange. I mean, Howard the Duck has a very fun chase scene with the ultralight. And if you didn't have the score, it wouldn't be as much fun. It wouldn't be as exciting. So anyway, they then Daryl and Dr. Stewart end up going towards another roadblock. And, well, this doesn't end too well because Dr. Stewart gets shot with a shotgun. And he's mortally wounded. So in the woods somewhere, he says with his dying words to Daryl, he says to Daryl, "You are a real person. Remember this. You are a real person." And then he dies. Daryl then steals an SR-71 Blackbird from a nearby airbase, which is total wish fulfillment. And the effect here is pretty good, practical. I think there might be a couple shots of the actual Blackbird in flight, but like when it takes off. But there's other ones that are just a model, kind of like what you would have seen in Firefox. I wouldn't be surprised if they just reused the Firefox model. And after being told that the plane will be blown up in mid-flight by the United States Air Force using a self-destruct mechanism, because their missiles cannot intercept it for some reason, Daryl ejects at the last moment, fakes his own destruction, which I don't necessarily... I don't buy the military just give up. oh, it blew up, so he's dead. I don't buy it. I really don't. They would come back and check up on Daryl. And the first place they would look is where he ends up in this film's happy ending. So the ejection knocks him unconscious. He drowns. They think he's dead. But then Dr. Lamb finds him and reactivates his electronic brain with something in a briefcase. We never see what's in the briefcase. We never see her restore his brain, which makes me think it was a reshoot or something. The original ending wasn't well received by audiences or something, so they did a reshoot, and maybe Daryl died in the original ending. I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to ask Barret Oliver about this movie, because it seems like in a star and there's more to this film. There's more scenes. There's deleted scenes. One where like Daryl is in like a freezer, and Barret Oliver was talking about it in a Starlog interview. So anyway, the film has a happy ending. Daryl is back to life. He runs and reunites with Turtle and with his foster family, and it's supposed to be this big happy ending. And I'm like, wait a second, the military isn't gonna stop looking for this 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 asset. They're not gonna. They wanted it terminated. They're not gonna like, oh yeah, they're just gonna assume that because the Blackbird blew up, that this super intelligent, smart computer kid with a computer brain is also dead as well. I mean, they're gonna double check. That's what the military always does. And the first place they're gonna look is this foster family. So it's a very bittersweet ending to me, because it just sets up a very the inevitable sad ending. It really does. It's like it's a happy for now, but it's not going to be happy for very long. Um, and also it just kind of ends. I mean, I would say it probably has more of an ending than Explorers, but at the same time, it doesn't tie up its loose ends. The military, there's, like I said, there's no antagonist, so it's not like Daryl won. He didn't beat anybody. All he did was steal a plane and then narrowly escape before it exploded. And arguably, yes, a good practical explosion, a good practical effect. But and then he's reunited with his family for how long? Probably not very long at all, because he still is going to have the military looking for him. They're going to keep tabs on this family, so they're going to see that Daryl's back, and then they're going to try to take him away. So it's like one of those things that, I mean, it just it needed a little bit more in the ending, like more closure. There's no closure here. But that being said, it was still a nice, heartwarming ending, and really like that song, "Somewhere I Belong." They kind of go something like this: "Somewhere I belong, somewhere I can call my own. Your love is leading me home." So I think it's a nice old school type duet song, which uses the main theme for Daryl as its background, not as its main theme. It uses the main theme from the movie as its main composition in the background. It's just instrumental backbeat, so to speak. And apparently, the scenes with all the computers at the military base that were all Daryl were filmed in the backstage computer rooms at Epcot Center, at Disney's Epcot Center, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, this is Barret Oliver talking about the film in a 1985 Starlog interview. He asks whether or not acting is work or fun, and he says, "I think it's fun, but it really is a job." Daryl, there was a part where I had to freeze to death, and they didn't even use it. It can get kind of frustrating, and I can see why. It is kind of frustrating. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much in terms of trivia for the film either. And yeah, it just kind of came and went when it came out. And it is pretty formulaic. It's pretty by the numbers, slice of family entertainment, but it follows this blueprint pretty well. And enough that like I said, it's decent. It's decent entertainment. It's a time waster. You can put this on if you have kids, and be a nice thing to watch with your kids, and they'll have something to enjoy what with you, and so on. I mean, there's better sci-fi movies out there for kids, but there's also worse sci-fi movies out there for kids than Daryl. So anyway, yeah, and Simon Wincer's direction just needed to be a lot better. He's done a lot better than this. I mean, he did The Phantom and Harley Davidson, The Marlboro Man, and all of these other films that I honestly that have much better direction with a lot more life, with a lot more energy. So, this is definitely probably one. This is definitely what, honestly, some of the worst direction I've seen from Simon Wincer is in Daryl. But anyway, I liked it. All right, it's decent. It's a time waster. Um, I could see why it's kind of been forgotten about because there isn't really a lot to remember other than Barret Oliver and the stuff with the Blackbird and maybe the end credit song and the overall concept. But, I would still recommend it if you're in an 80s sci-fi movie for kids kick, or, if you're a fan of Barret Oliver from The Neverending Story, or if the film interests you. I would recommend it. I think it's available for rent on YouTube. You have to pay like $3 or whatever. And the DVD, like I said, it's a little bit hard to find, so good luck with that. You can find it in various other places as well. Probably get a VHS for cheap somewhere, and things like that. But yeah, I would say it's worth a look. It's worth a watch at least once. But anyway, I don't know what to say about Daryl, except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I would give the movie 3 out of 5. Your typical average, just there time waster. But yeah, I mean, it could be worse. It's inoffensive. It didn't piss me off. It didn't feel like it had too many missed opportunities. It just feels like the way that it's written is just the way it is. I mean, it could have a little bit extra stuff, more action and more intrigue, and that would have made it better. But then the direction by Simon Wincer would have let it down anyway. So either way, it was going to falter whether or not it had a stronger script. So anyway, yeah, thank you for watching my review of Daryl, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.